I'm psyched to be able to bring you today my interview with Mike Lepond of Symphony X, Silent Assassins, Ross the Boss, and numerous other projects. Mike's a really innovative and interesting bassist in that while he has high technical skills as he exhibits in projects like Symphony X, he's also really creative, uses a large sound palette in other projects like Silent Assassins, and he shared a lot of the info behind how his thinking and his writing process goes and the differences between the two projects and how he approaches bass completely. We also got into his technique, his sound, his gear, top to bottom. A really great interview with a really, in my opinion, underrated bassist and someone who has a lot to pass on. So, despite the internet's best efforts at sabotaging it and technical issues, we powered through, and it's a really great interview. So, I'm really pleased to welcome to the channel Mike Lepond.
So, welcome to the channel, Mr. Mike Lepond from Symphony X, Silent Assassins, and many others. So, it's really good to have you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of fun here. So, I guess to start out with, why don't you bring us up to date with where your projects are, what we can expect in the future, and your status right now.
Okay, well, as you guys probably would understand, not too much has been going on really musically with the way things are these days. But basically, as far as Symphony X, we have just began writing for a new album. I don't know when the writing will be done. I don't know when the recording will commence, but the writing has begun. So, it's something that's, we've been looking forward to doing it. And we've been kind of putting it off. And we had a lot of tours that were postponed or canceled. And we were kind of on hold, but we finally decided to start doing that. With my solo project, Silent Assassins. The last album came out in June. Oh, wow. So we're looking at almost a year ago. It was called Whore of Babylon. And that's just been out there. Again, haven't been able to do any shows on it or anything like that. So, during all this time, even though there hasn't been a lot of shows, I've been doing a lot of recordings for other bands. So I've been keeping busy that way and keeping the chops up that way because it's easy to just kind of get lazy.
Yeah, for sure.
And just kind of eat too much during this time. So.
Totally. Yeah, feeling it, man. Definitely. It's and none of it helps you because then you're slow and out of shape and out of chops. So
yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Well, I guess maybe we'll kind of start at the kind of back at the beginning, and I'd be interested to go into your technique a little bit. And would you mind sharing the players who inspired you, but that you feel kind of influenced your technique and everything, and where we might see that show up in your playing?
Excellent question. Good bass player question.
Yeah.
Well, usually bass players are inspired from players that you come across, when you're first learning the instrument and, in your first, maybe your first 10 years of playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I always loved heavy metal and hard rock. So actually my very first influence, who actually was a good training ground for a beginner bass player, was actually Gene Simmons.
Okay.
And what I liked about Gene Simmons was he really taught me, how to kind of walk the bass around the chords and kind of play some blues and things like that. And then after that, I got into Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath with a real heavy blues attack. Steve Harris with that gallop, that's just, that great two-finger technique. Of course, Geddy Lee from Rush, incredibly melodic and awesome, awesome player. And another bass player that was the bass player from Manowar, Joey DeMeo. And from him, I learned just how important chords, power chords, would be in a heavy metal in a heavy metal setting. You know, how it really would gives a song so much power. So you know, throughout the years, those influences kind of came through. In the Symphony X stuff, you don't really hear too much of those influences because the music is very busy, and you know, you don't want to do too much because you got the guitar playing a riff, and then you got the keyboard player doing a counter melody to the guitar. So it's like, you know, if I do my own thing, it might sound a little chaotic. So I either try to play with the guitar or the drums just to keep it really tight. But with my Silent Assassins solo stuff, that's where you hear all my influences. So you really hear a lot of Geezer Butler. I think probably out of all the influences that I mentioned, you probably have the longest lasting influence. Just that real heavy blues kind of playing. And also from my years of being in Symphony X, I learned a lot of different kind of scales, modes, what have you, that I like to use, and they come out too. I'm trying to think what other stuff. And from the Manowar, Joey DeMeo used an 8-string bass. So
Yeah.
I have an 8-string. I love using it. It's a lot of fun. So I use it for a lot of chord stuff. But basically those guys, and that's who you'll usually see in my style.
Yeah, it's cool that you brought up the 8-string. I was going to touch on that at some point. Because I definitely think, like, when I watch or I hear, especially more the Silent Assassin thing, is I've noticed that more than a number of other players that you go into texture, that they're like colors of sound or trying to vary things or how the bass's role functions, like using an 8-string or using more chord work or things like that. So there's a wider palette of kind of sonic color that you tend to tap into, and that's something I found really impressive and interesting. And that when I want that type of thing, so I was curious to see who your influences were, and they are kind of broad about the different styles and things and where those things were coming in from.
Yeah, and also, I guess one thing I did forget to mention, in later years, I started listening to, which of course I always loved Ritchie Blackmore, but I started listening to his stuff with Blackmore's Night a little more. And I really started to enjoy what, you know, the chord patterns and the melodies that, you know, that was going on there. So a lot of it influenced my bass playing, and so a lot of not a lot, but there are some Silent Assassins elements that are a bit folky like that.
Got it. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think that's what it is that kind of stands out is I can hear in your playing, there's a lot more attention to chord work and melody than a lot of bassists might normally put in. And that's what kind of like sets you out a little bit and having a more identifiable style.
Yeah, you know, I think unfortunately, in a lot of the newer mixes in like heavy metal especially, the bass is just too low in the mix, you know, and you really can't hear what's going on, you know. So with the Silent Assassins, I make sure the bass is up, you know, like it was in the late 70s, early 80s. The bass was up real nice and loud. You could hear the bass walking around, you know, and you know, out widening the chord, and it was so awesome. And so I try to keep that. And sometimes I use the bass almost like a keyboard, just to kind of like pay attention to what key we're in or that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you go back to even the blues and early Motown era, you know, the bass basically carried the song and everybody else worked around it. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to go back and hear some of that stuff and realize, you know, you can structure a song around a different instrument, you know?
Yeah. You know, you can play heavy metal and not only follow the guitar riff. You know, you could take the chord and, you know, let's say it's, you know, you're playing a heavy metal song and the guitar player hits the big chord, the big power chord, and you could play around it a little bit. You don't have to just play just the root note only, you know. And so, I love doing that. I just think it adds so, like you say, it adds so much color, and it just makes it so much more fun too.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as far as that goes too, I've noticed something interesting about your technique, especially right hand technique. Is that usually when I see guys, and I know like I'm like this, like I do 3-finger plucking and there's a consistent, constant thing going on. Whereas I see much more variance in yours in that you break and use single finger index a lot. And it seems like, I don't know if maybe you're choosing to do that specifically for parts, or is it's just kind of how your technique has grown over the years. Sometimes you're using more than one, sometimes just one. How do you feel like that's come together for you?
A lot of that, and I'll be totally honest with you, a lot of that is my 3-finger technique is really not that happening. You know what I mean? So maybe there's a lot of things that I would want to use like a quick 3-finger technique, but maybe I just can't do it good enough. So I think of other options, sometimes, since I play with my fingers, I want to mimic a pick a little bit. A pick, it's a little more hard of an attack. So what I'll do, instead of just, playing like that, I might go like that to make it a little harder of an attack. So I'm kind of going back and forth, and it's making it a little heavier. But I think I just take each part and just kind of see what works the best, for me and my technique and my style and for the song.
Sure. I try and get that across with students a lot, and I think it's in a weird way almost that metal and even bass has gotten there's too many orthodoxies or rules. Like I have mine, and I'll teach somebody 3-finger constant alteration. I'll go like, don't break it, don't like make it a motor thing. But then I go, but then at the end of the day, you got to say to hell with me. And if something functions for you and you can blow me away with it, then I can't throw stones. You got to find out what that is that works.
Yeah. You gotta just like look at your technique, your style, what the song needs. For some reason, I use a 3-finger technique, but my fingers just don't seem to be strong enough to like keep it going. So a lot of times I have to use other ways. But it's all part of the fun, and it's made me maybe have to think of other ways that are kind of, cool too.
Sure.
Like sometimes I'll play real high, real low on the neck, where my 3-finger technique is the best for some reason. I don't know why. It's real low like that. Higher, it's not good, but I wouldn't have learned that until I saw that. Oh, okay, I'm not too good here. How about here? So I guess I guess you see where you're at, and then you make your adjustments.
Sure. Already I'm kind of getting an understanding that you're very big on experimentation. Like, you use a lot of different sounds, you try different basses. Your technique seems to be a constant thing of like, I'm just going to throw stuff and see what happens. I think that's really where art comes from. You kind of have this thing of like, I'm just going to keep trying new stuff. And that's when somebody steps out and is noticeable because they've gone out where another player might not necessarily think to go.
Yeah. Just by watching other bass players, other guitar players, and other musicians, for example, I watch these flamenco guitar players, and I watch them like, wow, look at these guys just use their hands. So I'm like, hey, why can't a bass player do that? That just kind of back and forth, and it sounds so cool, So I kind of use it if it's needed, it's just another thing to throw in the arsenal, have in the bag.
Yeah.
So, it's fun, just coming up with these different ways to do kind of the same thing, but in a different way.
Definitely. That's very cool. And like I said, I think it'll be really cool for a lot of the audience to hear that because, like I said, I try and reinforce that a lot of, it's almost like you have to learn a set of rules and then break them. And, hearing it from a proficient player and someone else out there going like, yeah, it's, at a certain point, you just got to run off on your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
I find it interesting too, like your choice of basses and what you do, like you have your 8-string and 4 with extended range and stuff being really common. Is there a reason that you aren't using maybe 5 or 6 or, you know, one of those choices as well?
Yeah, you know, I of course I grew up on the 4-string bass, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and when I joined Symphony X, I kind of just stayed with the 4-string. But in the progressive metal genre, most of the bass players, or at least play 5 or 6-string, you know, and I guess I never experimented with. I mean, I do have a 5-string in case I have to record something where, like, say, the guy has a 7-string guitar. But in Symphony X, I just never used it. I mean, we're kind of tuned down as it is, so I guess it wasn't really a big deal. But the 8-string I like a lot because it's almost like, I mean, I kind of approach it like an acoustic guitar, you know, not so much because I know some other bass players use it like, well, there's a lot now, none are coming to my mind.
Yeah, of course. I think even Sheehan used one for a couple of tunes on some of his solo stuff.
Oh, wow, did he?
Oh.
Yeah, John Paul Jones did too, I think, or maybe it was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, but when I hear it, I like to play chords with it, you know, and it, you know, it feels really good, you know. But you know, again, it's just like you have the song in front of you, and you listen to the song, and you think, you know, what could I do that will make this song sound great?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think about, hey, what new thing could I try so people look at me? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, wow, okay, this would sound really cool in this song, you know. And in there's one Silent Assassin song, the title track called Horror Babylon, where I use an 8-string and a 4-string in the same song.
Yeah.
And I just like, let's just try it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, it's my song. So there's no guitar. It's just you know, and you have and basically you have the 8-string doing a nice melody, and the 4-string just playing some stuff behind it. You know, the bass, the actual bass line.
Mm-hmm.
So I just take each song individually and say, you know, what I think would work.
Very cool. It's I think again it may be something that I've tapped into it in a different way, but hearing you doing a more articulated version is it almost coming at the music from the perspective of a listener, like what do I want to hear rather than what do I want to play. And those are two very different ideas.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, coming from a listener standpoint and from a player standpoint. And yeah, it just makes it, you know, I like to come at it even from both standpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And it just keeps the music from sounding stale, you know, it just keeps it fresh in different ways.
So are you still with and are using comparison? Is it that you've been comparison basis?
Yes, in around 2006, 2007, my guitar player for Symphony X, Michael Romeo, got a comparison endorsement. I had never heard of them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, he told me about it, and he said, you know, hey, you know, everything's handmade, high quality. I mean, they're not real well known, but, you know, it's a real high quality instrument. So I approached Comparison. I think they have their offices in England, but they make the basses and guitars in Japan. And they were really nice. They sent me the bass, and it just sounded really, really solid. It sounded great. And so, you know, I've been with them till now.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's been really, really great. You know, they actually they just came out with a brand new bass that I ordered, and people have been raving about these pickups called Fishman pickups. I haven't heard them yet, but that's what these basses have on them. So I'm looking forward to trying it out. Hopefully they'll make an 8-string at some point.
That'll be interesting, definitely. And what is the 8-string that you're playing? Where did you dig that one up?
Yeah, it's the very first 8-string I got.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the reason I had gotten it was Ross the Boss, the co-founder of Manowar, asked me if I would, you know, play with him, do some shows, do some recording. And obviously they were going to play Manowar songs, and I knew, you know, I had to get an 8-string, you know. Mm-hmm. So I really didn't know what to get, where to start. But I knew that John Gallagher from Raven played one. And so I didn't, you know, not that I knew him real well, but I reached out to him, and super nice guy, you know, super nice guy, you know, and he said, well, mate, you know, he goes, he had a signature model that was based off of his Kramer that he had from like the late 70s, I guess early 80s. He had a Kramer 8-string. So I bought that, and it's, you know, had the Explorer body. The company that made that, October, I guess, went out of business, but I had that for a while. I still have it. And now in recent years, I bought an LTD.
Oh, okay. ESP.
Yeah. And nice wood finish, looks really, really nice. And, you know, sounds great. It really makes a big difference if you don't have a rhythm guitar player in the band, and you just, you know, the guitar player's doing a solo and you're just playing, it just fills it up big, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I got into 12 because of that, the kind of Doug Pinnick style thing. Same thing. They're just massive. You know?
So you have a 12?
Yeah.
Oh man. So a 12-string, is it like I mean, how do you get your finger on 3 strings? Is it really tough?
It might seem like that. It is a little odd, but I mean, it's basically kind of the same feel as the 8. There's just one more octave string per set. So it just feels like you're playing really flat, thin strings. So it didn't take me too long to get to, kind of get used to and everything. And it's, around the same principle. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I think Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick plays 12, right?
Exactly.
That's so awesome. That's great. Yeah.
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, what are you using amp-wise, and any effects or pedals these days?
Right. If Symphony X is touring Europe, I mean, basically, you just got to kind of like look at what's available to rent at the time, So usually I'll just rent your basic amp peg, if I'm on tour. When we tour here, I have 2 A10 PV amps, which sound fine, sound good. I think the head is called 700 Tour, something like that,
yeah.
an older. I guess, also what I use is sometimes instead of like, if I'm on tour, instead of worrying about the amp sound, I use stuff from Tech 21, they make great stuff. So I'll use the Tech 21 bass fly rig.
Okay.
And it's got everything I need. It's like that big, so small. It's got chorus that if I'm playing the H string, I'll put some chorus on. It sounds really nice. All the overdrive you want. It's got compression. And then it's also got some like really cool stuff as far as like almost like those 70s kind of crazy sounds that you would get like some of those disco guys would get, or funk guys,
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of cool things in it, and I really don't need much. So, I just throw it in my backpack, and I really don't even need an amp, just crank the monitor up and then you're good to go,
Yeah. I use a lot of their stuff too. It's the technology anymore is just nuts. It really is.
Yeah.
And especially with how hard it is to tour anymore and stuff, it can be a lifesaver not having to have, the whole U-Haul with the gear in it and that kind of thing, you know.
What I would like to get to, which I haven't really looked into, maybe some of your listeners could point me in the right direction. I'm just so sick of lifting these amps, dude.
Get it.
They weigh like 2 tons. I just want to get a head that weighs nothing and a cabinet that's nice and easy to lift. I'm just over it, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm looking into that next.
Okay. Well, I'll send you some stuff after here. I may be able to help out with that. Some like micro power amps and stuff that you can hold in one hand and maybe just run your pedals into it. Stuff. Yeah, well, I'll definitely send you a couple links and stuff. See if I can help out there.
Oh, that's killer! Thank you.
Totally. Yeah, I know the pain. Definitely. I've drug. Well, you can see at the back. I have my Mesa 412 back there and stuff. It doesn't go out as often as it used to.
See that?
It's great to have on stage, and I love that feel of the pressure behind it. But,
it's good just to play in your house, right?
yeah, exactly. Throwing concerts up in the attic here.
Yeah.
So, now is how can I say it? As far as kind of it being in the profession and the way you approach different things, I kind of see what you're doing, at least in the projects in between Symphony X and Silent Assassin and everything. Can you explain kind of the differences in approach in that I see that you have like coming in and playing Symphony X and their legacy material, where you're having to play something that wasn't composed by yourself, then stuff that how you deal with being a member of Symphony X, how that role maybe changes, and then being able to have complete freedom in your own project, and how at least profession wise dealing with those different things, because you have to deal with other members and what they expect from you and that kind of thing. So I guess starting with Symphony X, how do you handle approaching the older material versus stuff you may write yourself?
The great thing about working with different bands is you get to play different roles in each of the bands, and each one is a learning experience. With Symphony X, Michael Romeo, the guitar player, he writes like 98% of the material. He's mega talented. So what he'll do, he'll write a demo, and the demo will have the guitar riff. It'll have the drums will be, whatever he thinks, they should sound like. They'll be programmed.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll have like, just like a keyboard bass line, So, I'll listen to what his drum ideas are. I'll also listen to what his keyboard ideas are. And, I'll kind of know what my parameters are. In Symphony X, I know the bass is not going to be doing anything really busy. A lot of it, he's got some really technical, really hard riffs. So I know usually that stuff is where I'll be really concentrated on. And the lighter parts, I know that I'm usually just kind of going to be playing with the bass drum and just kind of focusing on that. If there's like a solo section that he wants for bass, he'll just tell me. So basically, I'm kind of listening to what his vision is and trying to give him basically what he wants to hear, but with my spin on it. Like maybe he hears a bass line, but I'll be like, well, okay, so it should really kind of be like this because this is how a bass player would approach it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been in Symphony X for 20 years, so that's kind of like the general idea,
Sure.
And it's, it's a 5-guy band, and, that's how it is. I do try to write for Symphony X too. I'll write some music, I'll write some lyrics. Some of it gets on the record, some of it don't, and, that's fine. Now with the Silent Assassins, I love doing this before I say it. I write all the music. I write all the lyrics. I write all the lyric melodies, the vocal melodies, I should say. I'll write the the keyboards and all that. I just kind of do everything, and it's an incredible amount of work, but at the same time, it's so incredible just to hear something in your head and then like maybe a year later hear it for real, and it's just an incredible feeling. So with that, you have to do everything, and so I could play. I learned rhythm guitar just enough to write. I can't play lead guitar, but I just hire whoever I gotta hire. So I'll hire the keyboardist. I'll hire people to play lead guitar, but I'll play actually rhythm guitar. I'll record the rhythms, and then of course I'll do the bass. And the reason I record the rhythms is it just takes too much time to teach someone each song. And, it's much easier just to say, hey, play a lead over this, it's much easier, So doing that, it's stressful too, because then you're dealing with people who are mixing it. And then they ask you, what should be louder. And sometimes you're not even 100% sure, you're not even sure what you're hearing. So you have to hope that they could guide you. But, that's just been a great thing to do. I think the biggest thing about Silent Assassins is I got to show fans, what I'm capable of doing, because in Symphony X, it's, there's not much going on bass-wise, but with the Silent Assassins, it's not as technical, and I can kind of do what I hear and have the bass out there a lot more out front. Now, as far as getting other projects, bands will just send me songs, and sometimes they send you songs, just the guitar and drums, and then they want you to play the bass over it. Typically, I'm sure you agree, when a band sends you their music, it would be great to get as much as they can send you, because if they don't send you the keyboards, how do I know if if this part is in a major key or a minor key? So I might play like, something like from, a minor pentatonic riff, and then, the keyboard I find out later is like playing something major or something, and I don't know if it's clashing or not. Sometimes the singer, I like to hear the vocals too, if possible, because you don't know what the singer is actually going to sing. You might play something that's clashing with the singer, a note that's a little, who knows, maybe I'll just hear it, but still. But usually what I'll do, I don't have a recording set up at my house. So I just kind of play along with it and learn it here. So I usually have a band send me an MP3, and I'll have a band just send me the guitar, just by itself. So if I can learn the riff and all that kind of thing. And then I just play what I think, I play whatever I think works. And usually I kind of know what they're looking for. You've been doing metal for so long, you kind of know, what the band is looking to hear from the bass. And sometimes the cool thing is you get other kind of music that asks if you can do say, for example, let's see, what's the band? It's an 80s band. Oh God, I forget the name of the band. There was a famous 80s band. I guess the guitar player's not with them anymore, but he's like, he loves the Beatles. So when he writes Beatles stuff. So he said, hey man, can you play to this? And I love the Beatles, and I love playing blues, walking bass. So this was a unique opportunity. So I did my best McCartney impression, and he liked it, and it was so much fun. So sometimes you get to do other stuff too, besides metal and hard rock. But that's basically my approach. I just do my thing, but I always keep in mind probably what they're looking for.
Sure. I think that's probably the ultimate bassist job at the end of the day. It's, I've always said that a guitar player screams his statement and we kind of whisper it behind him.
Yeah, we kind of hold it all together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. It's like we're always looking for the whole. you know, where to sonically poke through and where to, you know, make a little statement and then, you know, make sure everything doesn't train wreck in the end. So
Yeah, we're like the manager, right? We just kind of like, okay, follow the drums, make sure he's doing his thing, and not
Mhm.
not play, not play too much, so the guitar player with the giant ego could do his thing, and right. Yeah, we're kind of just making sure everybody's good. Yeah.
Yeah. The true elephant on the stage. So,
Yeah.
in between two projects like Silent Assassins and Symphony X, do you kind of focus the same way gear and tone wise, or do you kind of change it up in between there, like finding that one sound works better for one than the other?
Yeah, I think they're definitely very different. The guitar tone is different, Symphony X, it seems like the guitar has a lot like, lower mids in there.
Mhm.
So it's hard to get the bass to pop out. So what I do is I just record a direct track, and then we have this guy Jens Bogram in Sweden,
Yeah.
famous guy, and I have him just kind of do what he's going to do, and make him give the bass whatever tone it needs to work with the guitar. With the Silent Assassins, I don't like to have the guitar to have too much lows in it. I like to have more, mid-rangey and higher, so the bass really has its spot, and I want the bass to be just up nice and loud, like it was in the in the older days, So the guitar is definitely not as thick as the Symphony X sound. It's just a solid tone, not too low ended, and then the bass has a nice spot to hang out in, and you could hear the notes. I always kind of think back, when you were in high school and you were in a cover band and you were going to learn, like, I don't know, from Ozzy or something like that. The bass was up loud and you could hear those lines and you could learn the lines, Now it's a lot harder, because it's a lot harder to hear what the bass players play, the clarity in those lines.
Totally. And I get you with the old Ozzy stuff. Bob Daisley, man.
Oh my God.
What a gold mine of bass work. Just astounding.
And, as you get older, you appreciate someone like a Daisley more and more. You go back and you listen to, of course, the Rainbow stuff is amazing too. But you listen to some of the Ozzy stuff now that you're kind of older and you really, and you kind of know what to look for, not so much like when you were maybe a teenager. And let me see if I could give an example. You could really hear the times where Daisley is really locking in with the bass drum.
Yeah.
Like, trying to think of the second track off Diary of a Madman. I forget the name of the song. Down, I don't know. Oh no.
Flying High Again. Flying High Again?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you hear the bass, the guitar's doing this cool riff, and the bass is just with the bass drum, and it's like, wow, that's so awesome, And it's like, guys like that, things like that blow me away. When a bass player just plays just that right walk, just that right passing tone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things that probably like most people don't even care about, but you just hear that nice line with the bass drum, or just that perfect segue into a song, and he's just wow.
Yeah. He was fantastic. I actually keep turning people on the channel and students over to SATO off of Diary, where it's just him and Randy and Lee just on a plow. Like, Ozzy's irrelevant to that song. He could have just not sung. And those guys are just a power trio at their most ferocious. Just everybody trading licks and parts, and amazing playing, really. I'd definitely like to hear a bit more of that,
Yeah. Those guys just knew they just knew what the bass should do. You know what I mean? It wasn't, there wasn't no overplaying. It was just, what, you know, what's right for the pocket, you know? And it's just, you know, you still go back and you still learn from it, you know?
Sure, totally. It's and the funny thing is, Daisley would play so much, and I always said that's the lesson: learning how to play a lot, but somehow it never becomes overplaying. Even though he's all over the board, you know, doing melodic parts, and then you know these hit bass lines and octaves, and he's just constantly moving, but somehow it's not noodling. You know?
Yeah, right. Or when you hear John Paul Jones, just a master. You know, and you said it perfectly, you know, playing a lot, but not overplaying, you know, and there's such an art to that. And sadly, I think a lot of that art, you know, in heavy metal, I'm just not hearing it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely. And I think a lot of it just became, I think, and, you know, I could be wrong, but just one of my suspicions is as down tuning has gotten further and further down, that it's become one instrument and that you're left with few choices. You know, it's when everybody's playing and pushing through one range, any deviation is just going to come across as a train wreck. So you're basically kind of an octave pedal for the guitar player at that point. And
that's a very, very good point. You know, as bands just get lower and lower, it's like, now where you're going to put the bass, where does it go? You know? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you know, you got to remember, you know, the bass means something, you know, and it can really make a melody pop out really nice.
And it's, well, also the understanding that bass is an instrument. It's not that knob on your amp. It does something different.
I say that. Oh yeah, I say that all the time. We're not a frequency. We're, you know, we're an instrument.
Yeah, it's like, I have a cello. Why do I need a trumpet? What? They're two different things, man.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So now, as far as touring, if you were going to be playing with Silent Assassins versus Symphony X, would that also affect your touring gear as far as, like, you know, whether you would need to take more of your own equipment, or because it's a different sound, the equipment choices that you would also use live?
Yeah, I mean, for both bands, what I would do is I would take that that bass rig out, the bass fly rig. I would use that for both. I would use that for anything I do, really, because I just love the way, you know, just makes this bass sound nice, big, and warm. And so I'll use that, and I'll just leave it up to the sound man to tweak what he's got to tweak, you know, for the show. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what it's sounding like out in the audience, right?
Yeah.
So I don't try to like be super crazy with it. I just get a sound that sounds good to me and hope for the best. Right?
I think that's probably going to feed into the patron question here. It's definitely going to be about professionalism and real life stuff and everything.
Yeah.
But, so for this section, for the main channel, we'll probably wrap up with this. And I'm going to ask Mike about professionalism, getting gigs, how he approaches being a pro in live and touring. And if you want that, patron links down below. But I'd like to thank Mike for coming on for the main channel. And if you want the rest, pop on over to the other channels. So we'll see you there.